When we talk about estate planning, one of the most overlooked factors is something called legal ownership. And what I mean by that is all of your stuff, whatever that is, IRA, life insurance, investment properties, your house, your CD, checking account, whatever it may be, all of that is owned by somebody. And understanding that legal ownership is critical because you can have a trust that's that thick. You can have a 100-page will. It can be the most expensive, fancy will trust ever designed. But if the legal ownership of all your stuff is not done correctly, then that will and trust may be worthless. May not even be worth the paper it's written on, and frankly, that's not very much. So think about legal ownership. And let's take a couple of examples. Take your house and assume you're married. So you and your spouse own your house. You are joint owners of that house. So if you die, who gets the house? Well, do we look at your will? No. Do we look at your trust? No. Do we look at some kind of beneficiary designation? No. Because if you and your husband, for example, own your house, then when you die, your husband gets it automatically. We don't deal with probate. We don't look at wills. We don't look at trust. None of that matters because it's the ownership, and your husband owns that house with you. Well, what about a bank account? You may say, well, I've got 4 children. I want, all my money is in a $300,000 CD. I want it to be split among my 4 children. Okay. And 3 of them live out of state, and I'm taking this from a real example. 3 of them live out of state. 1 of them is local, and I'm widowed now, and so I don't know what might happen to me. So I've got 1 daughter, the one that's local. She's on the account with me. Okay, well that seems pretty smart. Now, if I die, do we look at the will and it says, oh, the $300,000 CD is to be split among the 4 children? No, we don't look at that. We only look at who owns that account. Well, it's that 1 child. She gets it all. Now, maybe she'll say, oh, well, I'll give some of it to my siblings. But what if she inherits it and she's in the middle of a lawsuit, in the middle of a divorce, in the middle of a bankruptcy? Well, then it's not going to be her choice to just give that away. You say, but my will says split between 4. It doesn't matter what your will says. Legal ownership trumps your will. I'll give you an example with an IRA. This was in the news maybe 6 months ago or so. I think it was like an 80-something-year-old guy got married. And he had, I think it was 4 adult children. And, they were somewhat concerned about that. He goes, look, don't worry. Everything is going to you. Now, really, the bulk of his estate was a rather large IRA. And so he passes away, 6 months after he dies, or after he gets married. And so the 4 children go, okay, well, we'll get the IRA. But what he wrote on the beneficiary designation of the IRA, and we have something similar with life insurance, sometimes with annuities, but the IRA said to be paid to or in accordance with my will. Well, what does that mean? For a beneficiary designation, that's meaningless. Okay? So if it's meaningless, then the sort of default rule is it goes to your spouse. Well, who's his spouse? The one he just married like 6 months ago. So all of his wealth went to his brand new wife, and his 4 children got nothing. Now that's not what he intended. And they sued, and ultimately the court said, look, we understand what your dad wanted. We understand what the will said, but the beneficiary designation trumps that. It overrules your will or your trust. And so that's why understanding legal ownership is so important. So for example, with a will, the only thing a will does is if I die and I have a will, only things that are in my name only pass according to the will. If my wife is on an account, or she's on a house, or I have my life insurance that says be paid to my children, well, then my will doesn't matter for those assets. So we'll talk about this in additional detail as we talk about wills and trust and IRAs and annuities and things of that nature. But just understand, legal ownership trumps your will, your trust, your estate plan. So I was doing this one time in a seminar, and there was a financial advisor, and he got this kind of disturbed look on his face. And I said, "What's wrong?" He goes, "I just realized I got divorced 2 years ago. I still have my ex-wife on all this stuff. It's supposed to go to my kids." Well, that might be his intention, but until he changes that beneficiary designation, changes the ownership at the bank, changes where his life insurance is going, then it'll go to his ex-wife. So it can happen to all of us where we forget about this legal ownership. So if you do nothing else in response to this video, go check your accounts, bank accounts, investments, retirement accounts, life insurance, annuities, real estate, whatever you have, check it and see how is the legal ownership of those accounts, and is that consistent with where you want to go. If you watched our video on basically what does estate planning do for me, we talk about estate planning and using documents is really the means to an end. It's the, if you can think about, it's the plane that gets you to Hawaii or wherever you want to go, gets you to the destination. So figure out, either on your own or with an estate planning lawyer, what is it that you want to happen? And then let's make sure you have the legal documents and your legal ownership of all your stuff is consistent with where you're wanting to go to. Now, if we can help you with this, you live in the state of Alabama, anywhere in the state of Alabama, we'll be glad to help you. My name is John Watts. You can call us at 205-879-2447, or you can contact us through alabamaelderlawyer.com. Thank you.